What would happen if aliens came to Earth, not to conquer us, not to destroy us, but to throw away their trash? And what would happen if humanity picked up that trash, studied it, repaired it, and turned it into the most terrifying weapon the galaxy had ever seen? Before we enter this story, give the video a like, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who loves stories where humanity refuses to stay small. They did not come to invade. That was the truth humanity found hardest to accept. For many years, every government on Earth had imagined the first open alien arrival as a moment of terror. People expected fleets in the sky. They expected demands. They expected warnings. They expected a voice from the stars saying Earth now belonged to someone else. But the aliens did not arrive like conquerors. They arrived like workers delivering an old machine to a junkyard. The ship appeared near the edge of the solar system on a quiet Tuesday. There was no bright flash. No grand entrance. No speech to all of mankind. One moment, the deep space sensor stations were reading empty space. The next moment, they were reading a massive object moving toward the inner system at slow and steady speed. At first, nobody believed the numbers. The object was over 4 kilometers long. It was larger than any structure humanity had ever placed in space. It was larger than most cities were wide. It had the shape of something made for war, wide at the center, sharp at the front, with long armored sections folded around its main body like the bones of some ancient animal. For almost 6 hours, every military command center on Earth was silent except for orders, status reports, and the sound of people trying very hard not to panic. Then the ship sent a message. It was not sent in English. It was sent in a common trade language used by several alien civilizations, a language humanity had spent 60 years slowly learning from intercepted signals. The translation teams at the Interstellar Affairs Bureau worked through it as fast as they could. At first, the words did not make sense. Decommissioned vessel. Disposal category. Destination, Earth. Classification, charitable transfer. The language officers checked it again. Then a third time. The meaning remained the same. The aliens were not attacking. They were giving Earth an old warship. No, not giving. Dumping. Secretary General Amara Dioa was in her office in Geneva when the complete translation arrived. She read the report once. Then again. Then a third time. Outside her window, the Alps looked peaceful and distant. The world below was still alive, still moving, still unaware that something huge and humiliating was falling out of the sky. Finally, she placed the report on her desk and said, very quietly, to no one in particular. They are giving us their garbage. The alien species was called the Cav. Humanity had known of them for decades. Not directly. Not through friendship. Not through trade. Humanity knew them the way a village knows a faraway empire, through rumors, signals, passing ships, and the fear in other people's voices. The Cav hegemony was old. Very old. It controlled more systems than humanity could properly count. It ruled through pressure, trade, treaties, and the quiet threat of force. It did not need to destroy weaker species. It only needed them to understand the difference between power and hope. Earth was not part of their empire. Earth was not even important enough to be threatened. To the Cav, humanity was a developing species. Clever, loud, emotional, ambitious, but still young. Still stuck in its own solar system. Still playing with early fusion drives and old chemical rockets. Still proud of ships that could barely reach the outer planets in a reasonable time. So when the Cav ship came closer, it did not slow as if it feared Earth's defenses. It did not take a careful path. It moved through the solar system with the relaxed confidence of something that knew no one could stop it. The vessel entered Earth orbit on Thursday morning. Every screen on Earth showed the same image. A dark alien warship hanging above the planet, its hull covered in bright orange markings. The markings were not decoration. The xenolinguists translated them quickly. Non-functional. Ready for disassembly. Decommissioned military asset. Unsafe for active service. Humanity stared at those words in silence. A ship that could have destroyed every human fleet in existence was, to its owners, junk. Then came the second message. It was automated, cold, formal, and painfully polite. The Cath hegemony informed humanity that the vessel was being transferred as a gesture of interstellar goodwill toward a developing civilization. The ship had been fully decommissioned. Sensitive systems had been removed. Humanity was encouraged to study its design and learn from it. The message also said the transfer created no treaty obligations, no protection rights, no diplomatic standing, and no promise of further contact. In simpler words, it meant this. Here is our 200-year-old junk. Learn something from it. Do not bother us. Then, as if the humiliation was not complete enough, a Cath official appeared on screen. He was not an ambassador of high rank. He was not a military commander. He was a third-level cultural liaison named Verith IV, assigned to what the hegemony called developing species affairs. He was tall and narrow, with shining skin that changed color slightly when he moved. His face held a practiced smile, the kind of smile a person gives when he is trying not to laugh. He spoke in perfect English. That detail made many people angry. It meant they had been listening for years. We hope this vessel serves as an educational resource, Verith IV said. Perhaps, in another few centuries, your species will understand what you are looking at. Then the channel closed. The recording was played at an emergency meeting of the United Earth Council. When it ended, the room was silent. Not for long. 11 seconds passed. Later, many people who attended that meeting would write books about those 11 seconds. Some would call them the most important seconds in human history. Because at the 12th second, Dr. Sarah Chen leaned forward and spoke. I want to board it. Every face turned toward her. Dr. Chen was 44 years old. She was an aerospace engineer, a Xenotech specialist, and the head of the Xenotech Integration Division. For 20 years, she had studied alien signals with no real alien machine in front of her. She had built theories from shadows, from radio fragments, from sensor ghosts left behind by ships that passed too far away to touch. Now there was a real alien warship above Earth. Not a theory. Not a signal. A body. Secretary General Daiwa looked at her carefully. They said they stripped it, Daiwa said. All sensitive systems have been removed. Dr. Chen smiled. It was not a warm smile. It was the smile of someone who had been told a locked room was empty, and had already noticed dust moving under the door. They removed what they considered sensitive, she said. I am interested in everything else. She looked at the image of the ship above Earth. Massive. Silent. Dismissed. Verith IV said we might understand it in a few centuries, Chen continued. I would like to prove him wrong in about 18 months. And if that line made you lean a little closer, tap the like button, subscribe, and share this story, because the real fun begins when humans stop feeling insulted and start taking notes. The first boarding team entered the ship at 600 hours on a cold February morning. A docking tether had been extended from Europa Station to the alien warship's main airlock. The airlock alone was larger than some human spacecraft. It had been built for Cath bodies, which were taller than humans, with longer limbs and wider shoulders. Dr. Chen led the team herself. She did not bring politicians. She did not bring camera crews. She did not bring people who wanted to stand in front of history and look important. She brought engineers. 41 of them. Propulsion experts. Materials scientists. Structural engineers. 3 xenolinguists. 2 systems architects. 1 military weapons analyst. 1 metallurgist named Dr. Osei Bonsu, who had once written a paper claiming that Cath armor required manufacturing methods humanity believed impossible. People had laughed at that paper. Not cruelly. Not always. But they had laughed. Chen found him listed deep in an academic database. She called him at 2 in the morning. He answered on the first ring. Pack a bag, she said. You are going to find out if you were right. 4 hours later, he was on a shuttle. The airlock opened without resistance. That detail annoyed Chen more than it comforted her. The cav had not even locked it. It felt like another insult. They had left the door open the way someone might leave an old chair on the curb for anyone to take. The team stepped inside. For a long moment, no one said anything. The ship was dark, but not dead. Emergency lighting ran along the walls in a deep violet glow. The color fit cav eyes better than human eyes, so the corridors looked strange and half-visible, as if the team had entered a cathedral built inside a submarine. The halls were huge. 8 meters wide. 6 meters tall. Smooth walls. No sharp corners. No exposed wires. No careless seams. Everything curved into everything else with a quiet confidence that made human manufacturing look rough and young. Dr. Bonsu stopped after only 4 meters. His scanner was aimed at the wall. At first, Chen thought something had gone wrong. Then she saw his face. He looked like a man staring at a miracle and a challenge at the same time. "This is it," he whispered. Chen moved beside him. "The alloy from your paper?" "Yes." His voice shook slightly. He ran the scanner again. The numbers came back. He stared at them as if they were alive. "It is not just the alloy," he said. "Look at the grain structure. The molecular lattice is organized. Not randomly. Not by accident. It is arranged by function." Chen waited. Bonsu touched the wall with one gloved hand. This was not cast. It was not forged. It was grown. He spoke slowly now, each word coming with more certainty. Grown under a controlled magnetic field. Layer by layer. The material changes its structure depending on depth. Outer layers resist heat. Middle layers spread impact. Inner layers carry load. The same surface is armor, skeleton, floor, wall, and sensor shield. He looked at Chen. This wall is smarter than anything humanity has ever built. They had been inside the ship for less than 5 minutes. Already, the garbage was worth more than anything Earth owned. Bonsu kept scanning. His breathing was faster now. "They gave us this because they thought it was worthless," he said. "This material alone could push human metallurgy forward by 50 years. Chen said nothing. She only looked down the long violet corridor. If the walls were this valuable, what else had the cav left behind? The answer came quickly. The weapon bays were empty. That much was expected. The cav had removed the actual energy emitters, the primary weapons, the parts that fired the deadly beams humanity had tracked in old battle recordings from distant systems. But the weapon bays were not truly empty. The targeting systems remained. The fire control architecture remained. The sensor links remained. The computers that decided where a weapon should fire, when it should fire, what it should hit first, and how to adjust for movement across deep space were still installed. To the cav, this made sense. Without weapon emitters, the targeting system was not a weapon. It was only software. Old software. Outdated software. Nothing worth removing. To humans, it was priceless. Priya Nair, the lead xenolinguist on Chen's team, spent 40 minutes working through the system handshake. Her fingers moved across her interface tablet with the patience of someone unlocking a sleeping mind. Then she looked up. "I am in the weapons computer," she said. Chen crossed the bay quickly. "The emitters are gone," Nair explained. "But the tracking algorithms are intact. Fire sequencing is intact. Target classification is intact. Multi-target prediction is intact." She tapped a line of alien code. "The cav removed the barrel," she said. "They left the brain of the gun." Chen stared at the interface. A gun without a barrel could still teach humans how a gun thought. The drive section was even worse. Or better, depending on who was asking. The cav had removed the drive cores. That was expected. The cores used exotic matter reaction systems beyond human science. Those were sensitive. Those were dangerous. Those were valuable enough for the Cav to take. But they had left the drive architecture. The magnetic confinement channels were still there. The thrust vectoring system was still there. The gravitational compensators were still there, enormous curved structures that allowed a ship of such mass to move without turning its crew into paste. Dr. Gene Park entered the drive chamber and stopped walking. He did not speak for 6 minutes. Nobody interrupted him. Park was a propulsion physicist. His entire career had been built around theories of alien movement. He had studied the way Cav ships changed direction. He had written papers about impossible acceleration curves. He had argued that Cav vessels must be bending local inertia, not canceling it, not ignoring it, but guiding it around the hull through structured gravitational fields. Now he was standing inside the proof. Finally, he sat down on the deck. Someone asked if he was all right. Park looked up with wide eyes. "I was right," he said. His voice was small, almost childlike. "I was right about all of it." He pointed toward the massive channels overhead. "The cores are gone, but the channels are still here. The compensation system is intact. We do not need to invent the entire drive from nothing. We only need to build human engines that fit inside this structure." Chen looked at him. "How long?" Park swallowed. "If we start today, less than a year." That sentence changed everything. The team moved deeper into the ship. Every corridor carried another insult from the Cav and another gift to humanity. The medical bays had been cleared, but their diagnostic beds still contained sensor systems humans could adapt. The navigation center had no active star charts, but the spatial mapping hardware remained. The command deck had been stripped of authority keys, but the interface logic was readable. The life support system was designed for Cav atmosphere, but its recycling efficiency was better than anything humanity had achieved. The ship was not a complete weapon. But it was a complete lesson. And humans were very good students when they were angry. Chen called Secretary General Daiwa from the ship itself. Her voice was calm. "I need a budget," she said. "As large as the council can legally give me. I need full secrecy. I need military protection around this vessel. I need access to every specialist on Earth, Luna, Mars, and the Belt. And I need you to keep the Cav from learning what we have found for as long as possible." There was a pause. "How long do you need?" Daiwa asked. Chen looked at the alien walls, the alien targeting system, the alien drive channels, and the very human faces of her team staring back at her. 18 months, she said. Maybe less. The official project name was the Xenotech Integration and Reactivation Initiative. No one used it. Inside the team, it had another name. Project Bastard. Dr. Bonsu gave it that name during the second week. He was standing in a workshop where human machines were being fitted into alien support frames, watching a human fusion assembly connect to a Cav containment channel through 3 adapters, 2 emergency clamps, and 1 piece of software written during a sleepless night. He stared at the strange hybrid machine and said, "That is absolutely what this is." The name stuck. The ship was officially called UES Prometheus. The team called her Bastard. Somehow, both names felt correct. The next 18 months became the hardest period in modern human engineering. People slept in labs. People ate beside machines. People forgot birthdays, anniversaries, and sometimes their own names. Arguments happened daily. Breakthroughs happened weekly. Failure happened hourly. Nobody walked away. Because everyone on the project understood the same thing. The Cav had tried to humiliate Earth. They had tossed down a 200-year-old warship and expected humanity to spend centuries staring at it in confusion. Instead, humanity had opened the door, stepped inside, and started making it angry again. Around week 3, Bonsu's materials team achieved the first true breakthrough. They could not fully copy the Cav armor. Not yet. The original material was too complex. The growth conditions required precision beyond human industry. But they could make a weaker version. The first successful panel was small, ugly, uneven, and full of errors. It was still stronger than anything humanity had ever built. Bonsu held it in both hands like a newborn child. "It is not perfect," one assistant said. Bonsu laughed. "It is impossible," he said. "Perfect can wait." By the end of the first month, the team could produce larger panels. By the third month, those panels were strong enough to reinforce human-built sections inside the ship. By the fifth month, shipyards around Earth orbit were quietly being converted to grow more. The cav had thrown away a wall. Humanity had turned it into a new industry. Park's propulsion team moved even faster. They could not recreate the cav exotic matter cores. That would take years, maybe decades. But Park did not need cav cores. He needed engines that could feed power into cav channels. So he built human fusion drives shaped for alien bones. The first prototype exploded. The second melted through its test housing. The third ran for 4 seconds and produced a thrust reading so strange that Park accused the sensor team of making a mistake. They had not. Inserted into the cav gravitational architecture, the human drive did not simply push the ship. It pushed the ship through a system designed to make mass easier to move. A human engine alone was powerful. A human engine inside a cav frame became something else. When Park ran full projections, he stared at the result, ran it again, then a third time. Then he walked into Chen's office and turned the display toward her without speaking. The Prometheus would be 8 times faster than any human vessel ever built. Not in theory. In operation. Chen looked at the numbers. Then she looked at Park. "Can you make it stable?" Park nodded slowly. "I think so." "That is not enough." He straightened. "I will make it stable." Month 4 belonged to Priya Nair. Her team had taken the cav targeting computer and begun teaching it human weapons. At first, it resisted every command. Not because it was alive, but because it was alien. It expected emitters that no longer existed. It expected energy profiles humans could not produce. It expected battlefield data from sensors that had been deactivated. So Nair gave it something simpler. Rail guns. Humanity understood rail guns. Accelerate a solid object very fast. Point it at something important. Let physics do the rest. The Prometheus was fitted with 32 electromagnetic rail gun batteries, each one human-designed and brutal in its simplicity. The ammunition was made of dense tungsten iridium penetrators. Nothing elegant. Nothing glowing. No alien beauty. Just long dark rods built to travel at impossible speed. The cav targeting system did not care what the weapon was, once Nair convinced it that the rail guns counted as valid outputs. Then the magic happened. The old alien fire control computer calculated firing lines with a speed no human system could match. It predicted movement across multiple targets. It corrected for drift, distance, acceleration, and rotation. It gave the rail guns a brain older than human spaceflight and sharper than any machine on Earth. Nair described it perfectly. A cav brain connected to human hands. And those hands were holding hammers. When the first live fire test happened behind the moon, the target was an old asteroid mining frame. It was small, cold, and tumbling. The Prometheus fired 1 round. The penetrator crossed the distance in silence and struck the exact center of mass. The mining frame did not explode. It ceased to be a useful shape. The control room went quiet. Then someone laughed. Then everyone laughed. It was not happy laughter, exactly. It was the sound of people realizing that the joke had changed sides. You have reached the part where the old alien junk is waking up, so take a second to like the video, subscribe for more HFY stories, and share it with a friend who enjoys watching humanity turn an insult into a weapon. By month 6, the cav noticed. It happened because of a trade vessel. A CAV commercial ship passed through the outer solar system on a routine route. It was not military. It was not spying, at least not officially. But its sensors saw activity around the discarded warship. Human construction frames. Heat signatures. Fusion tests. New armor plates. Power flow through systems that should have been dead. The trade vessel filed an observation report. 3 weeks later, Earth received a formal communication from the Hegemony Office of Developing Species Affairs. The message was polished. That made it worse. It expressed concern that humanity's modification of the decommissioned vessel might exceed the technical capacity implied by the original transfer. It noted that the hegemony retained the right to review the reactivation of disposed military assets. It advised Earth to avoid unsafe experimentation beyond its civilization classification. The meaning was simple. We are watching you. We may have made a mistake. Stop before we make you stop. Secretary General Daiwa brought the message to Chen in person. Chen read it once. Then she read it again. Then she placed it beside a stack of drive test reports. How long before they can send a military force, she asked. Daiwa already had the answer. Minimum 3 months. More likely 6. Chen looked at the project schedule. The Prometheus was not ready. The weapons were close. The drives were close. The armor was improving. The crew training program had barely started. Life support conversion still had problems. The spatial awareness array was unstable under full power. But the CAV were no longer laughing from far away. Now they were watching from the doorway. Chen tapped the schedule with one finger. Then we have a deadline. Daiwa folded her arms. What do you cut? Everything that does not help us move, see, or fire. That sounds military. Chen looked up. It became military the moment they warned us not to improve their gift. The next phase was brutal. The scientific dream became a wartime project. Systems that would have been studied carefully for years were stripped down to what could be used. Beautiful theories were abandoned if they did not produce working hardware. Labs became workshops. Workshops became barracks. Every engineer learned emergency procedures. Every scientist learned how to work under ship-wide combat alarms. Chen also revealed the system she had been hiding. The spatial awareness array. It had been one of the strangest parts of the ship. The CAV had not removed it because, again, they did not consider it a weapon. It was a passive sensor system. Old. Built into the hull. Designed to help the original battle cruiser understand the space around it. But old CAV technology was still beyond human imagination. The array could track every object, every power source, every heat bloom, every gravitational distortion within a sphere 200,000 kilometers wide. To the CAV, it had been a navigation and safety system. To Chen, it was the missing piece. A ship that could move fast was dangerous. A ship that could fire accurately was dangerous. A ship that could see everything around it, move faster than anything near it, and aim with alien precision was something far worse. Chen showed Daiwa the integration model. The spatial array would feed directly into the targeting system. The targeting system would feed the rail guns. The drive system would reposition the ship inside the same sensor sphere faster than enemy commanders could react. Daiwa watched the simulation play. The Prometheus moved through empty space like a predator inside dark water. What did the CAV build this ship to do? Daiwa asked. Survive, Chen said. It was built to detect danger and avoid it. And what did we build it to do? Chen looked at the display. Hunt. The room went still. Daiwa spoke softly. In their 200-year-old junk. In their 200-year-old junk, Chen said. That became the soul of Project Bastard. The CAV had thrown away a ship that could see everything and run from everything. Humanity rebuilt it into a ship that could see everything and kill everything. Crew selection began in month 8. Captain Tomás Reyes was chosen to command the Prometheus. He was 53 years old, a veteran of the Belt conflicts, a hard calm man with a face that looked like it had negotiated badly with several fists and survived all of them. He had spent his career commanding ugly ships in ugly situations. He did not love speeches. He did not enjoy politics. He cared about crew discipline, clean systems, and whether an engine would answer when called. Chen liked him immediately. Reyes toured the Prometheus for the first time without speaking much. He walked the corridors. He studied the control stations. He stood in the weapons bay for a long time. He entered the drive chamber and looked up at the human fusion cores sitting inside alien channels. Finally, he turned to Chen. "This ship is not human," he said. "No," Chen replied. "It is not Cav either." "No." Reyes nodded. "That may be why it works." He spent the next 6 weeks learning the ship like a second body. He asked brutal questions. He rejected half the first crew list. He demanded emergency manual controls for systems Chen had assumed would remain automated. He ordered drills until people hated him, then ordered more until they understood why. His rule was simple. Anyone who needed to believe the Prometheus was safe did not belong on it. The ship was not safe. It was possible. That was enough. By month 12, the Prometheus could move under its own power. The first engine test shook every station in Earth orbit. Not physically. The ship's compensators prevented that. Emotionally. For the first time, humanity watched a stolen insult become motion. The Prometheus drifted away from her dock, turned with impossible grace for a vessel of her size, and crossed 10,000 kilometers in less time than some human shuttles needed to clear traffic control. People cried in command centers. Not because it was beautiful, though it was. They cried because, for the first time, the sky felt smaller. The stars felt closer. And the galaxy felt less untouchable. The Cav returned in month 14. Not with one ship. 7 current generation Cav warships entered the solar system in formation. They did not hide. They did not need to. Their message was broadcast on every frequency. The Interstellar Affairs Bureau translated it in less than a minute because it was written in simple legal language, designed to be understood fast. The Cav hegemony invoked Article 7 of the Galactic Salvage and Disposal Conventions. According to them, Earth's modification of the decommissioned vessel counted as unauthorized rearmament. The vessel, identified by its charitable transfer code, was to be surrendered immediately to hegemony custody. Humanity had 48 hours. If Earth refused, the ship would be disabled and reclaimed by force. Non-compliance would be considered an act of aggression. 7 ships. Not one. 7. Every military analyst on Earth understood what that meant. The Cav were not coming to negotiate. They were coming to make an example. Humanity had no fleet that could fight them. The active United Earth Navy was brave, but bravery did not change numbers. In raw power, the 7 Cav vessels outmatched humanity's total space combat capacity many times over. And Ambassador Verith came with them. He sent a private message to Secretary General Daiwa. His face appeared on screen with the same polite expression he had worn 14 months earlier, but now there was tension behind it. "Secretary General," he said, "I must admit, we underestimated your engineers. Whatever you have managed to do with that old hull is beyond what we expected. It is impressive. Truly." He paused, then continued. "But you must understand our position. We cannot allow a developing species to possess military hardware beyond its classification level. Return the vessel, and this matter ends peacefully. You have my personal guarantee that there will be no further consequence." He sounded reasonable. That was the dangerous part. He sounded like a parent speaking to a child who had taken something sharp from a drawer. But he was making one very old mistake. He assumed humanity was afraid. Secretary General Daiwa's reply was broadcast officially. She stood at her desk in Geneva. Behind her, the blue and white curve of Earth appeared on a wall display, with 7 hostile ships marked in red at the edge of the system. Her voice was level. Ambassador Verith 4, thank you for your concern. Earth would like to respectfully point out that the charitable transfer conditions placed no restrictions on modification. Article 7 applies only to vessels modified with technology supplied by the hegemony. The UES Prometheus is a human vessel, upgraded by human engineers, using human-designed systems, built upon a frame that is legally our property. She paused. We will not be returning her. Then she closed the channel. Verith 4's response arrived 11 minutes later. The warmth was gone. You have 47 hours and 49 minutes. If you are enjoying the moment where humanity looks at 7 alien warships and still says no, give the video a like, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs a story about courage with steel in its spine. Inside the Prometheus, nobody cheered. There was no dramatic celebration. The crew heard the decision and went back to work. Final checks continued. Ammunition loading continued. Drive calibration continued. Emergency medical teams prepared for casualties no one wanted to imagine. Armor crews sealed access panels. Reactor teams triple-checked safety margins. Navigation officers loaded combat maps of near-Earth space. Dr. Chen was not on the command deck. She was in engineering, standing under the Spatial Awareness Core, watching one of her assistants adjust a final signal stabilizer by hand. Captain Reyes found her there. 47 hours, he said. I know. The Council has voices asking for surrender. I know that too. Are we ready? That question made the engineers nearby go quiet. Chen did not answer immediately. She had run simulations for months. 212 combat scenarios against reconstructed CAV capability data. She had made each one harsher than the last. She assumed enemy speed higher than estimates. She assumed their weapons were stronger than known. She assumed their commanders were smarter than likely. She built nightmare after nightmare and sent the Prometheus into them. The ship had won 194 times. The losses bothered her more than the wins comforted her. 12 had been fixed through engineering changes. 6 remained uncertain. Unknowns. Gaps in human knowledge. Places where reality might kill them. 7 is more than I expected, she said. Reyes waited. I planned for 5 as the worst reasonable case. 6 was possible. 7 changes the engagement geometry. Can we win? Chen turned from the display. We can beat 5. We can probably beat 6. 7 requires us to use this ship in a way the CAV never designed it to be used. Explain. We go close. Very close. Inside their formation, inside their preferred firing solutions. We use speed to stay where their weapons do not want us to be. We use the spatial array to see every angle before they can adjust. We disable mobility first, not weapons. Then we take the fight apart one ship at a time. Reyes nodded slowly. Can the crew do it? The crew is exceptional. That was not my question. Chen looked him in the eye. The question is whether I built a ship good enough for exceptional people to survive in. Reyes considered that for a moment. Then he looked around engineering. They sent 7 ships because they expected us to have 1. Yes. His mouth almost formed a smile. Then they are already wrong. He turned to leave, then stopped. For what it is worth, Doctor, I have read everything you built into this vessel. The targeting integration. The spatial system. The drive changes. The way you made our weapons speak through their nervous system. He looked back at her. They threw away a knife. You built a nightmare. Then he left. Chen stood still for several seconds. Then she went back to work. The 48-hour deadline expired at 400 hours on Saturday. At 401, the 7 CAV warships began moving toward Earth. At 403, the UES Prometheus moved to intercept. She left high Earth orbit without ceremony. No parade. No music. No heroic speech. Just 4.2 kilometers of reborn alien hull, carrying human engines, human weapons, human crew, and 18 months of furious human refusal. The command deck was calm. Captain Reyes sat in a center chair. Around him, officers watched their stations with sharp controlled focus. Weapons Officer Lieutenant Commander Amina Adeyemi sat at targeting. She had worked with Nair for 8 months. She understood the alien fire control system better than anyone except Nair herself. At first, the 7 enemy ships were distant marks. Then the spatial awareness array came fully alive. A sphere of space unfolded across the command display. Every ship. Every course. Every heat signature. Every drive fluctuation. Every small adjustment the cav formation made as it advanced. The array did not show space as empty. It showed space as full of intentions. Adeyemi watched the targeting computer identify all 7 cav ships in under 3 seconds. It classified them. Estimated armor. Mapped likely weapon zones. Predicted maneuver paths. Suggested firing priorities. Her throat felt dry. Targets acquired, she said. All 7 firing solutions computed. Reyes did not turn. Hold fire. The cav fired first. A single directed energy pulse. Not a killing shot. A warning shot. A disabling shot. Standard hegemony protocol for inferior vessels. Strong enough to cripple. Weak enough to leave survivors. Designed to end the engagement before it became a battle. The spatial awareness array detected the shot 0.3 of a second before impact. That was almost no time at all. For a normal ship. The Prometheus was not a normal ship. The drive system fired a micro-correction burn. The hull moved 30 meters. The energy pulse missed. On the cav command ships, confusion spread in silence. A shot at that range against a target moving that slowly should not miss. But the Prometheus was no longer moving slowly. Reyes spoke one word. Burn. The human fusion drive screamed power into alien gravitational channels. Inside the ship, the crew felt 2 times Earth gravity press against them. Hard. Painful. Survivable. Outside the ship, the Prometheus crossed 40,000 kilometers in 94 seconds. Cav sensor officers checked their screens because the numbers looked wrong. A vessel that large should not move like that. A vessel that old should not move like that. A vessel given to a developing species as garbage should not move like that. The Prometheus came out of the burn inside the cav formation. Not near it. Inside it. 200 kilometers from the nearest enemy ship. At that range, the largest cav weapons were almost useless. Their big guns were built for formation control and long-range dominance. Firing at the Prometheus now risked hitting each other. The cav had a doctrine for weaker enemies. They did not have a doctrine for garbage that charged into the middle of their formation and started biting. Adeyemi fired. 32 rail gun batteries opened in perfect sequence. There was no bright beam. No cinematic flash. Just hard rods of tungsten iridium accelerated to terrifying speed by human machines, guided by an alien brain. The first targets were not bridges. Not reactors. Not crew sections. Chen had chosen the priority months earlier. Gravitational compensators. Every cav warship relied on them. Without compensators, the ship could not maneuver at combat acceleration without killing its crew. The compensators were external, distributed along the hull, shielded but visible. In the first 90 seconds, the Prometheus hit compensators on 4 of the 7 cav ships. 4 enemy vessels suddenly dropped out of combat maneuvering. They were not destroyed. They were trapped. The other 3 turned to engage. Then the real battle began. It lasted 11 minutes and 40 seconds. Human historians would later spend years studying those minutes. The Prometheus moved in ways no fleet academy had ever taught. Reyes used speed like a knife fighter uses footwork. Never still. Never where the enemy had aimed. Never following the path an enemy expected. The spatial awareness array fed him everything. Distances. Vectors. Weapon charge patterns. Heat rise in enemy emitters. Gravitational stress shifts along enemy hulls. Reyes did not simply dodge. He chose. Every burn placed the Prometheus at an angle where Adeyemi could fire and the Cav could not answer cleanly. The Cav were not fools. They were experienced. They had old doctrine. They had commanders who knew how to control battle space. But their doctrine assumed superiority. It assumed weaker enemies would flee, surrender, or die at range. They had never trained for a ship that wanted to be close. They had never trained for an enemy that could see everything. They had never trained for humans flying their own discarded warship back at them like a sharpened curse. Ship 5 tried to rotate its main weapon spine toward the Prometheus. Reyes burned under its firing line. Adeyemi put 3 penetrators through its reactor housing. Not enough to detonate it, but enough to force emergency shutdown. The ship went dark. Ship 6 tried to protect Ship 7 by crossing behind it. The Prometheus dropped below both vessels at a distance that made the collision alarms scream. Adeyemi fired upward. The penetrators ripped through Ship 6's exposed weapon array. The entire forward battery went dead. Ship 7 was the last mobile Cav vessel. For 8 seconds, it continued to fight. Then it made a decision none of the others had made. It turned away. Away from Earth. Away from the Prometheus. Away from the battle. It ran. Reyes watched it on the spatial display. Adeyemi looked at him, waiting. She had a firing solution. A clean one. Reyes shook his head once. Let it go. The command deck stayed silent. Let it go home and tell them what happened here. Ship 7 fled toward the outer system. Behind it, 6 Cav warships drifted disabled in human space. Their crews were alive. Their weapons were cold. Their engines were silent. The Prometheus held position between them and Earth. Untouched. Not one hit. Not one breach. Not one shot landed. In engineering, Dr. Sarachin watched the final status report appear on her display. Enemy combat capability, neutralized. Prometheus hull integrity, intact. Crew casualties, none critical. For the first time in 18 months, Chen stepped away from her console and placed both hands on the Cav wall beside her. The same wall Bonsu had called smarter than anything humanity had ever built. She closed her eyes. The weight of the project came over her all at once. The sleepless nights. The fear. The failures. The pressure. The people she had pushed too hard because history had not given her time to be gentle. For one moment, she allowed herself to feel it. Then another feeling rose under it. Pride. Not arrogance. Not revenge. Pride. Humanity had been mocked. Humanity had been handed trash. Humanity had opened it, learned it, rebuilt it, crewed it, and used it to stop the empire that threw it away. And if that battle felt satisfying, hit like, subscribe to the channel, and share this video, because stories like this remind the galaxy that humans do not need perfect tools to become dangerous. 17 hours after the battle, Ambassador Verithfor sent a transmission. It was not addressed to Secretary General Daiwa. It was addressed to Dr. Sarachin. That surprised everyone. The message was 4 minutes long. For the first 40 seconds, Verithfor did not speak. That alone was strange. He was a diplomat. Silence was not his natural weapon. Words were. When he finally spoke, the polished warmth was gone. What remained was more careful. More honest. Dr. Chen, he said, I owe you an apology. He paused. Not on behalf of the hegemony. That apology will come through official channels, and I expect it will be shaped by people who fear admitting too much. This apology is personal. Chen watched without expression. Varithfor looked tired. I made an assumption about your species. I have made that assumption about many younger civilizations, and I have never been wrong before. Another pause. I assumed that what you did not yet fully understand, you could not use. His eyes lowered for a moment. That was incorrect. He looked back at the camera. I also assumed fear would guide your decisions. I assumed fear of us would be greater than curiosity, greater than pride, greater than anger. His voice softened. That was also incorrect. He seemed to search for the right English word. What you built is not the work of a frightened species. I believe your language has a word for it. He breathed in slowly. Audacious. Then the channel closed. Chen watched the recording twice. Then she saved it and went back to reviewing repair reports. The official hegemony response came 3 days later. It was 40 pages long. It was written with the painful precision of an empire trying to admit it had been wrong without sounding weak. The hegemony acknowledged that the original transfer terms had not specifically forbidden modification. It acknowledged that the Prometheus had used human-designed weapons and human-built drive cores. It acknowledged that Earth had acted defensively after a direct hegemony threat. Most importantly, it offered reclassification. Humanity would no longer be listed as a developing species. Earth would be classified as an emerging civilizational entity. In hegemony language, that was one tier below full galactic standing. Humanity had jumped 3 levels in 18 months. Secretary General Daiwa read the document in full. Then she called Chen. They want to reclassify us, Daiwa said. They also want their ships back. The crews are alive, Chen replied. The ships can be returned after inspection. And the reclassification? Accept it. You sound ready. I have been ready since month 2. Daiwa gave a small laugh. Of course you have. Chen leaned back in her chair. But ask for something in exchange. What? Trade rights. And access to the hegemony material science archives. Daiwa went silent. Chen continued. Specifically, the full manufacturing protocols for the composite armor. Bonsu cracked part of it with 1 ship in 18 months. With full records, he will solve the rest in 6 months. You think they will agree? They know we will solve it anyway. This lets them pretend they are granting knowledge instead of losing control of it. Daiwa considered that. You are already planning the next 18 months. I started planning them during the first 18 months. The trade was accepted. The CAF received their disabled ships back, minus certain sensor logs Earth legally retained as records of a defensive engagement. Humanity received archives that changed industry forever. Bonsu opened the first material science files and did not speak for almost an hour. Then he whispered, they really did not understand what they gave us. Within 6 months, human shipyards were producing full-strength composite panels. Within 1 year, every new military vessel used some form of CAF-derived armor. Within 2 years, civilian stations began using lighter versions. Safer habitats. Stronger hulls. Better radiation shielding. Mining platforms that could survive impacts that once would have killed entire crews. The Prometheus had not only won a battle. It had opened a door. And humanity, being humanity, did not walk through slowly. The recommissioning ceremony took place in Earth orbit. 300 dignitaries attended in person. Billions watched from Earth, Luna, Mars, the Belt, and the outer colonies. The orange disposal markings were gone. Chen had painted over the last stripe herself with a brush. It was not efficient. It was not necessary. A maintenance drone could have done the job better. But she wanted to feel the paint cover the insult. Now the hull carried the blue and gold of the United Earth Navy. Below the registry number were words large enough to be read from another ship. UES Prometheus. Built by human hands, from what others discarded. Captain Reyes stood on the docking platform in dress uniform, looking deeply uncomfortable with attention. A reporter asked him what it had felt like to take a 200-year-old decommissioned alien vessel into battle against 7 current-generation HFY warships. Reyes thought about it. Like bringing a knife to a gunfight, he said, and discovering the knife knew something the gun did not. The reporter asked who deserved credit for the victory. Reyes looked across the platform. Dr. Chen stood near the ship with coffee in one hand and a tablet in the other, already reading new archive data during her own ceremony. She made it a sword, Reyes said. It was her knife. I just had the good sense to fly it. Chen pretended not to hear him. Everyone knew she had. The story spread faster than any official report. Across human space, it became a legend almost immediately. Children built toy Prometheus models. Engineers hung orange paint strips in their labs as a joke and a warning. Naval academies studied the battle. Scientists studied the project. Politicians quoted it badly. Artists painted it better. But the story did not stay human. It moved across trade routes. It entered alien stations. It reached species that had lived under hegemony's shadow for centuries. At first, many did not believe it. A developing species had received a discarded HFY warship. They had rebuilt it. They had defeated 7 HFY vessels. Not destroyed them. Defeated them. Disabled them. Spared them. Let one run home. That last detail mattered. In some versions of the story, the Prometheus destroyed half the fleet. In others, it swallowed enemy fire like a god. In others, Dr. Chen personally piloted the ship while Reyes fired the rail guns by hand. The details changed. The core remained. The HFY gave humanity garbage. Humanity returned a nightmare. Small civilizations heard the story and remembered it. Not because they expected humans to save them. Not yet. But because the story proved something the hegemony did not want anyone to believe. The powerful could be wrong. The old could be surprised. The young could learn faster than expected. And humans were not safe to insult with tools lying around. Across the hegemony, military academies quietly added the Battle of Earth orbit to strategic study programs. They did not call it a defeat. Officially, they called it a failed asset retrieval action. Unofficially, cadets called it the trash war. The name spread despite every attempt to stop it. HFY commanders studied the Prometheus engagement in private rooms. They watched the sensor recordings again and again. They analyzed each burn, each firing sequence, each positioning choice. Many found the same conclusion deeply uncomfortable. The humans had not won because they had better technology. They had won because they used mismatched technology in a way no HFY commander predicted. The Prometheus was ugly by HFY standards. Inefficient in places. Improvised. Overstressed. Unclean. But it had been built by minds that did not respect the original design as sacred. That was the danger. The HFY saw technology as a ladder. Each level replaced the one below it. Old systems were discarded because newer ones were better. Humans saw technology as a toolbox. Old parts. New parts. Broken parts. Stolen ideas. Repaired ideas. Anything could be useful if placed in the right hands under enough pressure. That difference changed the galaxy. Enjoying this kind of human stubbornness in space, then give the video a like, subscribe, and share it with another sci-fi fan who understands that sometimes the best weapon is the one your enemy threw away. 5 years after the battle, the Prometheus was no longer alone. Humanity had built 3 sister ships. Not copies. Nothing humanity made after the Prometheus could truly be called a copy. The original had too much alien structure, too many strange bones, too much history in its walls. But the new vessels carried her lessons. Human engines in adaptive frames. Rail weapons guided by alien-inspired targeting logic. Spatial awareness arrays built from human designs improved by CAV archives. Composite armor grown in orbital fields. The first sister ship was named UES Daedalus. The second, UES Endeavor. The third, UES Defiant. The name said something about humanity. Build. Try. Refuse. The CAV protested at first. Then they stopped. Not because they approved. Because they understood the legal ground had shifted under them. Humanity was no longer a quiet developing world staring up at the stars. It had trade rights. It had diplomatic status. It had allies beginning to whisper at its doors. It had a ship that had embarrassed the hegemony in front of half the known galaxy. And most important, it had learned too much to be put back into ignorance. Dr. Chen became famous, which she hated. People wanted speeches. Interviews. Public appearances. Children wrote letters. Universities offered awards. Governments wanted her in advisory meetings. Companies tried to hire her with sums of money that made her laugh out loud. She refused most of it. Not because she was humble in the soft way people like to imagine heroes should be. Chen was not soft. She refused because there was work to do. The Prometheus had been a beginning, not a finish. The galaxy had noticed humanity. That meant danger. It also meant opportunity. Chen knew both were coming. One evening, 6 years after the battle, she stood alone inside the original Prometheus corridor where Bonsu had first scanned the wall. The violet emergency lights were gone now, replaced with warmer human lighting. The corridor still felt alien. It probably always would. Bonsu found her there. He was older now. Everyone from Project Bastard looked older. They had paid for those 18 months with pieces of themselves. Thinking, he asked. Always. He touched the wall. Do you remember what I said here? That the wall was smarter than anything we had ever built. It was true at the time. Chen looked at him. At the time. Bonsu smiled. I have a new panel in Lab 4 that may disagree. Chen laughed quietly. It felt good. Not victorious. Not dramatic. Human. Bonsu looked down the corridor. Do you ever think they did us a favor? The CAV? Yes. Chen considered that. They meant to insult us. That does not answer the question. No, she said. It does not. For a while, neither of them spoke. Then Chen said, yes. They did us a favor. But not because they gave us a ship. Bonsu waited. They gave us proof that the galaxy was arrogant. That it could overlook things. That it could be careless. She placed a hand against the wall. They gave us permission to stop feeling small. Bonsu nodded. That is more dangerous than the ship. Yes, Chen said. It is. Far away, in the hegemony capital system, Verith stood before a review council. His career had not ended after the Prometheus incident, though many expected it to. In a strange way, his failure had made him valuable. He had been the first CAV official to understand humanity's mistake potential. Mistake potential was the phrase he used. The council disliked it. Humans do not behave like other developing species, Verith said. A senior counselor clicked his long fingers against the table. All young species believe they are special. No, Verith replied carefully. Humans believe broken things are useful. The council chamber fell quiet. Verith continued. They do not wait for complete understanding before action. They learn by using. They accept risk at levels most species consider irrational. They combine systems that were never meant to connect. Their progress is not clean. It is not predictable. That makes it difficult to control. Another counselor leaned forward. You speak as if they are a threat. Verith thought of the Prometheus moving inside a CAV formation. He thought of a ship that should have been helpless. He thought of Chen's face when she refused to return it. I speak as if they are a civilization, he said. We should start treating them like one. Not everyone listened. Empires are slow learners. That was something humanity and the Cav had in common, though neither side would have enjoyed hearing it. 10 years after the battle, Earth hosted its first full interstellar summit. Not a hegemony event. A human event. Representatives came from 22 species. Some were official. Some were unofficial. Some came quietly because they did not want the Cav to know how interested they were. They came to see Earth. They came to see the ship. They came to learn whether the stories were true. The Prometheus rested in orbital dock, still active, still scarred from years of refitting, still unmistakable. Visitors stared at her with different kinds of fear. The older species saw a dangerous precedent. The younger species saw hope. During the summit, one envoy from a small aquatic civilization asked Dr. Chen a question through a translation device. Why did you not destroy the Cav ships when you had the chance? Chen answered honestly. Because we did not need to. The envoy's throat fins trembled. Many would have taken revenge. Revenge is easy to understand, Chen said. That is why it is often a trap. The envoy watched her. You wanted them alive. We wanted witnesses. That answer traveled farther than any speech. It told the galaxy something important. Humanity was not harmless. But humanity was not careless either. The Prometheus had not been built for slaughter. It had been built to change the terms of a conversation. It succeeded. After the summit, trade expanded. Human engineers gained access to technologies no one had offered before. Not weapons at first. Safer things. Medical devices. Power systems. Environmental control. Agricultural tools for hostile worlds. Humanity absorbed all of it. Quickly. Too quickly for the comfort of old powers. Every new system became a lesson. Every lesson became an experiment. Every experiment became some strange human improvement that made the original owners nervous. A species from the Vayer Collective sold humanity water purification membranes. Within 8 months, humans used the same principles to improve fuel filtering in fusion engines. A merchant group from Tel Aviv sold low-temperature superconductors for hospital systems. Within a year, humans adapted them into deep space sensor rings. The Cav watched. So did everyone else. The pattern was clear. Humanity did not receive technology. Humanity digested it. Then humanity built teeth. If this rise from insult to influence is the kind of story you enjoy, like the video, subscribe for the next one, and share it with someone who loves seeing humanity earn its place among the stars. The Prometheus became more than a ship. It became a school. Every year, the best engineers from Earth, Mars, Luna, and the Belt came aboard for training. They walked the same corridors Chen had walked. They studied the same systems that had once seemed impossible. They learned the most important rule of human xenotechnology. Do not worship alien design. Respect it. Question it. Break it carefully. Build something better when possible. Priya Nair became head of the Interstellar Systems Language Institute. She taught a generation of translators that language was not only speech. Machines had language. Interfaces had language. Even weapons had language. If you can understand what a system expects, she told her students, you can teach it to accept something new. Gene Park became director of Human Advanced Propulsion. He never stopped looking tired. His teams pushed beyond modified Cav channels and began designing fully human compensation systems. Not as elegant at first. Not as efficient. But human from the core outward. When someone asked him whether humanity would ever surpass Cav propulsion, Park gave a rare smile. That is the wrong question, he said. We will not become better Cav. We will become better humans. Osei Bonsu changed construction forever. His grown armor process moved beyond warships. Cities on Mars used it for pressure domes. Deep ocean habitats used it on Europa. Rescue shelters used it in asteroid mining zones. The same material once wrapped around a discarded alien warship now protected children sleeping under other skies. That pleased Bonsu more than any military contract. Armor is not only for battle, he said. Sometimes armor is what lets life continue. As for Captain Reyes, he remained with the Prometheus. He was offered command of newer ships. He refused. They are fine ships, he said. But this one and I have an understanding. Under his command, the Prometheus became the flagship of the United Earth Navy. Not the newest. Not the strongest forever. But the first. And first has its own gravity. 15 years after the battle, a crisis came from beyond hegemony space. A raider fleet began attacking trade routes near the border systems. They were not Cav. They were not human. They were something looser, a coalition of pirates, exiles, and private warships feeding on weaker colonies. One of the threatened worlds requested human help. That alone was historic. Before the Prometheus, no one would have asked Earth for protection. Now they did. The United Earth Council debated for 13 hours. Some argued humanity should not get involved. Others warned that sending ships beyond secure routes would anger the hegemony. Some feared a trap. Dr. Chen, now an advisor, sat through the debate until she could no longer stand the careful fear in the room. Finally, she spoke. We wanted a place in the galaxy, she said. A place is not given. It is occupied. If we only defend Earth, then Earth is all we are. The room quieted. She continued. When the Cav came, they expected us to be alone. We were alone. We survived anyway. Other worlds are alone now. If we answer, we become something larger than survivors. The vote passed. The Prometheus led the relief force. This time, she did not fly alone. Daedalus, Endeavor, and Defiant flew with her. For human ships crossed into contested space, carrying not just weapons, but a message. Humanity had arrived. The raider fleet expected weak convoy escorts. They found the Prometheus. The battle was shorter than Earth orbit. The raiders were not an empire. They had no discipline, no deep doctrine, no patience for losses. When the Prometheus disabled their lead cruiser in the opening exchange and the Defiant crippled two flanking ships, the raider formation broke. Reyes did not chase the ones who ran. He had a habit now. Let one go. Let them carry the story. The protected colony welcomed the human crews with a ceremony full of music, water lanterns, and translation errors. One elder approached Reyes and placed a small carved stone in his hand. The translator rendered her words carefully. You were made from insult, she said. Now you answer prayers. Reyes did not know what to say. So he held the stone and bowed. Later, he placed it in the Prometheus command deck, near the captain's chair. It stayed there for the rest of his service. The Cav noticed the rescue. Of course they did. This time, they did not object. That was when many analysts understood the real shift. The hegemony still disliked humanity's rise. But it had started calculating around humanity, not over it. That was the first sign of respect. Not friendship. Respect. They are not the same. Friendship can be warm and easy. Respect often begins with someone realizing it would be expensive to hurt you. Humanity accepted that. For now. 20 years after the charitable transfer, Verithfor visited Earth in person. He was older too. His skin had lost some of its bright shifting color. His movements were slower. His smile, when he used it, no longer looked quite so practiced. He requested a private tour of the Prometheus. Chen agreed. The two of them walked the corridors together. No cameras. No officials. Only two people tied forever to the same mistake. Verith touched one wall lightly. I remember when this ship was marked for disposal, he said. I remember your smile, Chen replied. He gave a small bow of his head. I deserve that. Yes. They kept walking. At the old weapons bay, Varith stopped. This system was never intended for your rail guns. No. It should not have accepted them. It did not at first. But you changed the logic. We taught it a new definition of weapon. Varith looked at her. That sentence is very human. Chen smiled faintly. I will take that as a compliment. It is. They reached the observation deck. Earth filled the glass, bright and alive. For a long time, Varith said nothing. Then he spoke quietly. When we gave you this ship, I believed we were showing kindness. Not equal kindness. Not respectful kindness. But still, in my mind, kindness. A primitive species would receive a relic and learn slowly. We would appear generous. Chen said nothing. I did not understand that insult is also a form of fuel for your people. That depends on the people. With humans, often enough. Chen looked at Earth. Yes. Often enough. Varith turned toward her. Do you hate us? The question surprised her. She answered slowly. No. No. I hated you for a while. Then I was too busy. Then I understood something. What? You did not create us. You revealed us. Varith seemed to hold that thought carefully. And what did we reveal? Chen looked from Earth to the old alien walls. That we were ready to stop asking permission. It expanded through stations, trade routes, research outposts, defense treaties, mining agreements, and messy partnerships that made diplomats tired and engineers happy. Humanity became famous for three things. Fast learning. Uncomfortable questions. And turning obsolete technology into something nobody expected. Alien merchants began adding special clauses to contracts with humans. No reverse engineering beyond agreed scope. No military adaptation without disclosure. No structural repurposing of civilian systems. Human lawyers loved those clauses. Human engineers found them funny. Not because they ignored them. They did not. Mostly. They found them funny because every clause was really an admission. The galaxy had learned to be careful what it left near humans. At the heart of it all, the Prometheus remained. By then, she was old even by human standards. Her systems had been replaced, rebuilt, improved, and reimagined so many times that philosophers argued whether she was still the same ship. The crew had an answer. Yes. A ship is not her parts. A ship is her story. And the Prometheus had the best story in human space. Every year, on Transfer Day, people gathered in orbit and on worlds across human territory. They watched the old recording of Varith for saying humanity might understand the ship in a few centuries. Then they watched the battle recording. The part everyone waited for was the first cav shot missing. Children cheered at that moment. Adults did too, though they pretended not to. Dr. Chen lived long enough to see the 50th anniversary. She was 94 years old then. Her body was weaker, but her mind remained sharp enough to frighten young officers. The ceremony was smaller than expected because she demanded it. No giant crowd. No endless speeches. Only the surviving members of Project Bastard, the current Prometheus crew, and a few representatives from allied worlds. Captain Reyes had died 7 years earlier. His carved stone from the rescued colony still sat near the command chair. Chen touched it before the ceremony. Then she walked, slowly but without help, to the same corridor where the first boarding team had entered. A young cadet approached her. The cadet looked nervous. Dr. Chen, she said, may I ask you something? Chen raised an eyebrow. You already are. The cadet flushed. What was the first thing you felt when you stepped onto this ship? Chen thought about giving the answer people expected. Wonder. Fear. Anger. Destiny. None of those were true enough. So she told the truth. Curiosity, she said. The cadet blinked. That is all. That is never all. Chen looked down the corridor. Fear makes you freeze. Pride makes you careless. Anger burns hot and fast. Curiosity keeps walking. She touched the wall. That is what saved us. Not weapons. Not courage alone. We wanted to know what the cav thought was worthless. The cadet nodded slowly. Chen smiled. And then, of course, we became offended. The cadet laughed. So did Chen. That night, Chen gave her final public speech. It was short. Everyone expected her to speak about victory. Instead, she spoke about attention. The galaxy did not underestimate us because we were weak, she said. It underestimated us because it looked at us quickly. It saw a young species, loud and divided and far behind. It did not look long enough to see how we learn. Her voice was thin, but steady. The Prometheus was not born from alien generosity. It was born from human attention. We looked closely at what others dismissed. We asked what could still be useful. We refused to confuse old with worthless. She paused. That is the lesson. Not that humans are always stronger. We are not. Not that humans are always wiser. We are certainly not. The lesson is simpler. She looked into the cameras. Never hand humanity a broken thing unless you are prepared to see it return working. That line became famous. Of course it did. Humans put it on shirts, ship plaques, academy walls, and the entrance to the Chen Institute of Applied Xenotechnology. Chen complained about the shirts. Secretly, she owned 3. A few months later, she died peacefully in her sleep aboard the Prometheus, during a final inspection tour she had insisted was not sentimental. Nobody believed her. Her ashes were placed inside the ship's main structural frame, behind a small plate near the original airlock. The plate carried only her name and 5 words. She wanted to board it. That was enough. The Prometheus continued without her. Ships do that. So do civilizations. The final CTA before the ending. If this story gave you that quiet proud feeling, like the video, subscribe, and share it with someone who believes humanity's greatest weapon is not power, but the refusal to waste a chance. 100 years after the Cav dumped their obsolete warship on Earth, humanity stood as a full galactic power. Not the largest. Not the oldest. Not the richest. But impossible to ignore. Human diplomats sat in councils where Earth had once been mentioned only in footnotes. Human ships guarded trade lanes. Human universities attracted alien students who wanted to learn adaptive engineering. Human shipyards became famous for building vessels that looked strange, worked well, and made traditional designers uncomfortable. The Cav hegemony still existed. It was still powerful. But it was no longer unquestioned. The galaxy had changed around it. Not because humanity destroyed it. That would have been a simpler story. The truth was more interesting. Humanity made the hegemony adapt. It made other species ask for fairer terms. It made younger civilizations less willing to accept permanent inferiority. It made old powers think twice before turning arrogance into policy. And everywhere humanity went, the story came with them. A story told in ports, academies, council halls, and quiet maintenance bays. The story of a ship marked for disposal. The story of a species treated like children. The story of engineers who walked into alien darkness and found the future hiding in the walls. The story of a captain who let one enemy ship run so the truth would have legs. The story of a woman who heard an insult from the stars and answered with 18 months of work. By then, the original Prometheus no longer fought. She had earned rest. She became a living museum, though every system was still maintained. No one dared let her decay. Visitors could walk her corridors, stand in the weapon bay, view the drive chamber, and see the command deck where Reyes had ordered the first burn. At the end of the tour, visitors reached a wide observation room. There, behind glass, one orange disposal stripe had been preserved. Not repainted. Not hidden. Preserved. Beside it was a simple inscription. This was what they thought we were worth. Below it was a second line. They were mistaken. Alien visitors often stood their longest. Humans usually smiled. Not loudly. Not cruelly. Just enough. Because the stripe was not shame anymore. It was proof. Proof that value is not decided by the person who throws something away. Proof that old does not mean useless. Proof that a civilization can be underestimated and still rise. Proof that humanity, when handed a symbol of contempt, might just turn it into a monument. One day, a Cath child visited the Prometheus with a school group. By then, relations between humans and Cath were calmer. Not warm everywhere, but stable. Young Cath grew up learning about humans not as developing curiosities, but as difficult neighbors with dangerous workshops. The child stood before the orange stripe for a long time. Then he looked up at the human guide. "Why did my people give this to you?" he asked. The guide thought carefully. "Because they believed we could not use it." The child looked confused. "But you did." "Yes." "Why?" The guide smiled. "Because nobody told us the right way to be impossible." The child considered that answer. Then he looked back at the stripe. "I think," he said slowly, "my people were foolish." The guide did not answer right away. Finally, she said, "Everyone is foolish sometimes. The important thing is what they learn after." The child nodded. "What did humans learn?" The guide looked through the observation window at Earth below, bright and blue and stubborn as ever. "We learned that the galaxy was not above us," she said. "It was just ahead of us. And now? Now we are catching up." Far outside the museum dock, newer human ships moved through orbit. Sleek vessels. Strong vessels. Ships built from lessons paid for in pressure, insult, danger, and sleepless work. None looked exactly like the Prometheus. But all carried a little of her. In their armor. In their drives. In their targeting systems. In their names. In the quiet human habit of looking at something broken and asking what it could become. That habit was older than spaceflight. Older than nations. Older than written history. A stone becomes a blade. A branch becomes a spear. A spark becomes a fire. A wreck becomes a ship. Trash becomes a nightmare. The Cav had not come to invade. That was the part humanity never forgot. They had come to throw something away. They had come with bright orange markings and polite words. They had come with a smile that said Earth was too young to matter. They had come believing power meant deciding what had value. They left behind the wrong thing. Not just a ship. A challenge. Humanity accepted it. And when the Cav returned to take back their mistake, they found the airlock closed, the engines hot, the rail guns loaded, and 340 humans ready to prove that understanding does not always begin with permission. Sometimes it begins with insult. Sometimes it begins with curiosity. Sometimes it begins with one engineer saying, "I want to board it." And sometimes, when an empire throws its obsolete warship onto a small blue planet, that planet looks up, smiles, and says, "Thank you. We will take it from here."